This is part 56 of JavaScript tutorial. In this video, we'll discuss how to use namespaces to avoid polluting the global scope. This is continuation to part 55. In part 55, we discussed the problem of global namespace pollution. So please watch part 55 before proceeding. JavaScript lack namespaces. However, we can use objects to create namespaces. Here we have an example. So basically this line here says if the PragimTech object already exists, use that. Otherwise, create an empty object. So now we can use PragimTech as a namespace if required. We'll look at an example of that shortly. We can also create nested namespaces in JavaScript. A nested namespace is a namespace inside another namespace. In JavaScript, to define a nested namespace, you define an object inside another object. We have an example here. So basically the first line says if the PragimTech object exists, use that. Otherwise, create an empty object. And the second line here says if TeamA already exists, then use that object. Otherwise, create an empty object. Let's look at an example now. We'll be continuing with the example that we worked with in the previous video session. And if you recollect from the previous video session, we have created two customer functions. One version of the customer function is present in TeamA.js file, and this function has got two parameters. The other version of the customer function is present in TeamB.js and has got three parameters. And on this HTML page, we are loading both the script files, TeamA.js followed by TeamB.js. Now, since these two functions have got the same name and since they are added to the global namespace by default, one version of the function overrides the other version depending on the order in which these scripts are loaded. And as a result of that, on any given page, we are able to use only one version of the customer constructor function. In this video, let's see how to make these customer functions belong to their own namespaces, and on any given page we want to be in a position to use both the customer constructor functions if required. So let's see how to achieve that using namespaces. So let's go to TeamA.js file first. Let's say both of these teams are working for Pragim Technologies. So we want to create a nested namespace here. So we want PragimTech.TeamA, and all the functions that TeamA develops, we want them to be part of PragimTech.TeamA that namespace. So let's go ahead and create a variable here. Let's name it PragimTech, and that equals PragimTech if it already exists. Otherwise, create an empty object. And we want to nest TeamA under PragimTech. So PragimTech.TeamA equals PragimTech.TeamA if it already exists. Otherwise, an empty object. And then we want this customer function to be part of PragimTech.TeamA namespace. So PragimTech.TeamA customer, and then we will have the function keyword. And then finally, let's return an instance of this customer object. Now this customer function is part of PragimTech.TeamA namespace. So PragimTech in this case will be added to the global namespace. And remember, in JavaScript, window is the alias for global namespace. That means to access customer function, you can do that in two ways. One is by going from the window object, because that's the global namespace. So window.PragimTech.TeamA.customer or PragimTech.TeamA.customer. So here in this case, PragimTech will be added to the global namespace, that is the window. So let's actually prove that. So let's save these changes, and if you look at this HTML page, we are already loading TeamA.js file. So let's reload this page, and then let's get to the developer tools by pressing F12 key, and then within the console window, let's go ahead and type keys of window. And then when we press enter, notice that PragimTech namespace is already part of the global namespace. Now when I say window dot PragimTech dot, we should see TeamA. And when we press dot, we should also see the customer function. So when I press enter, notice that we get the customer function with 2 parameters. So the fully qualified name of this function is vendor.PragimTech.TeamA.customer. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing for the other version of the customer function that's present in teamB.js file. So let's actually copy this and paste that in this file. So here we want the namespace to be PragimTech.TeamA, and then we want this function to be part of PragimTech.TeamB namespace. So PragimTech.TeamB.customer equals function, and then we want this function to return an instance of the customer object. Alright, now let's save these changes. Let's go to our browser, reload this. Now when we say keys of vendor, notice that we have PragimTech namespace there. So vendor.PragimTech dot, now we should see both TeamA and TeamB. Now if I go to TeamB dot customer, we should get the customer function which has 3 parameters. Notice that now on any given page we should be able to access both the versions of the customer constructor functions. So let's say, for example, if I want to access TeamA customer function, so vendor.PragimTech.TeamA.customer, and this version of the customer function takes 2 parameters. Let's say the first name is Tom and the last name is Grover, and we want to call getFullName method, which is going to return the full name, and let's go ahead and alert the full name. And if I want to access TeamB, then I can say vendor.PragimTech.TeamB.customer, and if you look at this function, notice that it has 3 parameters. Let's say Tom, middle name T, and let's say last name is Grover, and we also want to alert the full name in this case. Alright, let's go ahead and run this page now. Let's actually close the developer tools, reload the page. Now first we get Tom Grover. Once I click OK, we should get Tom T Grover, but for some reason it says object. Let's see why is that. That's basically because we are not calling the getFullName method, so we are just getting the object back. So let's call getFullName function, and now let's reload this. Tom Grover, now we should get Tom T Grover. Thank you for listening and have a great day.